You are listening to the Marketing 32 Show with your host, Brett Allen.
Hi, Brett Allen here, host of the Marketing 32 Show, where I connect with leading dentists, dental influencers, and industry experts to uncover the latest and greatest that's happening in dentistry to help you guys grow and thrive. This episode, as always, is brought to you by our team here at Marketing 32. We're the only dental marketing agency that I know of that is truly invested in your growth. And if you're not growing, you don't pay us. We really try to find practices we know we can help and deliver that value. So if you need help growing, check us out at marketing32.com and we'll have a quick conversation to see if it's a great fit. Quick shout out to Bob Spiel. Just had him on the show. We talked all about dentist partner pros and how they find associates for practices and their success rate. And we also got into his podcast, Just Say No to the DSO. Talked all about the challenges with DSO in dentistry. Today, I'm excited to have Dr. Jeff Grove on the show. We'll talk a little bit about group practices and DSO, but he is a practicing dentist with over 20 years of experience who has built and led multiple successful dental practices, including founding Grove Dental Group and co-founding a 10-location dental support organization. As a faculty clinical instructor at the University of Colorado School of Dental Medicine, and a frequent guest lecturer at Harvard, UPenn, and Temple Dental Schools, he brings both clinical expertise and academic credibility to his work. Dr. Grove now coaches dentists on achieving work-life freedom while maintaining practice independence, specializing in helping dental professionals combat burnout and build sustainable, fulfilling careers. That's quite the intro there, Dr. Grove. Excited to have you on.
Thanks for having me, Brett.
Yeah, this will be a fun conversation. So you've got quite the background and experience. I want to if we can go first into co-founding a 10-location practice. We've got several clients of ours that are multi-location, and that's certainly a direction a lot of entrepreneurial dentists go, is building up multiple locations and a group practice. Tell us more about your experience in that realm and how that led you to where you're at today now with Ascension Dental Coach.
Yeah. Great experience really overall. I mean, I think you can look back in your history, and I can look back in my history and certainly look at ups and downs and low points and high points, just as everyone can. What I like about the experience that I've had in dental is it's been very diverse, vast, lots of different applications. I've worked in, everything from a small practice with just myself to having one associate to having 20 associates in 10 locations. So, through that experience, you get a lot of perspective. You learn a lot. You learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about the industry and people. And, I was probably 8 or 9 years into my career, and I had gotten to the point where I felt clinically my aptitude was pretty good. But I realized that I had a lot of work to do on myself as a leader and learning about business and how to grow. And I was ambitious. And, at that point, you have this drive and this ambition, thinking bigger is better and more. And so I built one really big group location, one really big office. And when I did that office was very successful. We had 4 doctors in it. We brought specialty in. It was a state-of-the-art facility. It was just sort of like at that point, the culmination of everything that I had worked for, in terms of becoming strong clinically and becoming a leader and really surrounding myself with super talented people. I had some amazing team members and doctors that helped me get to that point and help us get to that point. And whenever you have something real successful like that, especially in, when the consolidation market, you're going to attract the attention of private equity and which I did and ended up attracting and bringing in some outside investors and some outside leadership and a board of directors. And all of a sudden, we were off to the races and building what ended up being 10 locations. Again, some ups and downs in that process. Overall, I learned a ton. When we came out of COVID, things, the practices didn't recover real well. We suffered just like a lot of practices did from the Great Resignation and a lot of team members leaving dentistry. And you get to a point where when you have private investors looking at a business, really they're looking at that return, and they decide that it's time to move on. And so, our board of directors, I was only one member of that. We decided to move on and sell the practice, which we did, to a larger group. So I lost my own, I sold out and lost my ownership in that. And, gave up my board seat and my working position in that company and moved out to Colorado and kind of rebooted and started and got back into some practicing out here. And I kind of feel like I'm in the second half of my career, but I don't know how to summarize it other than like ups and downs, and just wouldn't trade it for the world.
It was a good experience.
Good experience overall. Yeah. And learned a lot, when you start to get
Yeah.
that scale, you learn a lot about what you can scale and grow and do well with, and what's a challenge. So
If we can take a moment to dig into that a little bit more, when we talk about private equity, I know on the episode with Bob Spiel, there's a lot that is at play with DSOs, and there's a lot. I know that there's stigmas out there towards DSOs. There's stigmas out there towards private equity getting involved in dentistry, and it's all about profit, and they don't look out for all these rumors about bad things with DSOs. But what was your experience working with private equity, and what was it like?
well, I had heard all of those, all of those stories and all those bad things. And so and maybe this was a bit naive. My thought was, if I can be part of building one from scratch myself, we will do it differently, and we'll
Mm,
remain people and patient focused. And I think we really did a good job with that. We had some fundamental things that we didn't do that well with, that hurt us along the line, some application of business type stuff. But in our 10 practices in our locations, we always had a focus on team and patient care and quality. And so my comment is, it's not so much like the model of private equity and DSOs that's bad. It's some of the motives that get kind of woven into some of those groups. And so
yeah.
I heard this once, and I've always said it, in terms of DSOs and groups and group practices, when you've seen one, you've seen one, right? So you a lot of times you hear a story or two and you're kind of like, oh, it must be bad. I've found in my experience, the ones that you hear about are the ones that are having challenges, maybe not doing it well. They start to put profits over patients, and it's happening for sure. And there's some really bad players out there, and some people that
Yeah.
just aren't caring about anything but the money. But the ones you don't hear about that are doing it well are still taking great care of patients, increasing the access and quality of care, employing great doctors and teams, and
Mhm.
they're flying under the radar and doing fine. So
Yeah.
I think there's a mix of good and bad happening in that.
Yeah.
I want dentistry to I want my ultimate goal for dentists, and with all my experience, Brett, is I want dentists to remain able to have the choice.
Right.
And I agree with what Bob, and like, I love the AID, the member of the Alliance of Independent Dentists, where we met. You know, I want to push back and represent and fight for independent dentistry, so that we don't go the way of medicine, right? Physicians don't have a choice anymore. They're going to work in one model, and that's pretty much it. I believe dentistry still has an opportunity. Dentists coming out of school and dentists that are practicing still have the opportunity to remain independent or to work for a big group in a private
Right.
equity backed location. I don't judge either one. I think we need to have choices. And to do that, we're going to have to continue to make the independent dentist, viable and effective.
Yeah. Shout out to AID, Alliance of Independent Dentists. That's how we met. Like you said,
Yep. Great
great
group.
group of dentists and people that are really impacting the industry for good. Check them out. Great group. So, okay. So you sold and you're out. You moved to Steamboat.
Yep.
Talk to us about, starting that practice and now doing coaching, right? Because that's a
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
part of what you do.
Yeah, came out here and took some time off. And honestly, those couple months that I took off were some of the loneliest, least purposeful, miserable months of my life, because I need to be busy. I love dentists. I love leadership. I love the concepts that make dentists need to understand to become great. I love talking about it. I love teaching people about it. So I went back and started helping out in a public health clinic to kind of get my fingers back into it again, start meeting and kind of let's just say recharging my engine for dentistry. And then I started, teaching students, fourth year students at CU through that agency, which is a great agency up here in Northwest Colorado. And then, I had just been coaching and consulting with dentists all along and had a great network. And I thought, oh, I'll start, I had a friend up here who's a coach, and he said, you should really like open up a coaching business and coach dentists, because dentists need help, especially the ones that want to remain independent. They need resources, and they need your knowledge. You need to pass that on to them. And so I'm just having a ton of fun with that and working with some great people.
That's awesome. So you have a practice and you're practicing, you're also coaching. Talk to us about, and I know this is, I like to ask consultants and coaches this question is like, in your experience when you're working with dentists and you're working with your clients, what are some of the big pitfalls or mistakes or challenges that they're up against, and how do you tackle those? What's been uh, eye-opening and helpful for your clients in those areas?
Great question. I think the biggest, when I connect with a doctor on an intro call where we're getting to know each other, I think the three biggest things I'm hearing is they're burned out. They're just out of energy.
Mhm.
They're losing some of their passion for the profession. They feel undercompensated. So with costs going up and reimbursements going down from insurance companies, they're feeling like they're working really hard and bearing all of the stress of their practices, but they're not getting compensated the way they envisioned being compensated. So they're challenged and feeling, off track financially. And then, the other one, the big one that tends to emerge as we talk more, is challenges with staff and team and culture, and just the worry that this revolving door of team members. A lot of times it comes back to that the dentist or doctor has just been so busy in the grind of running the practice, coming in, fixing teeth, going home, trying to maintain their work-life balance, that they've sort of forgotten and let their culture and their team and their communication and some of those foundational leadership principles kind of slide and slip a little bit. So we'll revamp that with a revamp of, what's the core focus of the practice? Where do we want the practice to go? How do we create, the practice of your dreams of what you want? And to get there, a lot of times it starts with some leadership and some culture and communication training with the doctor. So we start there, and that becomes foundational and kind of a breakthrough time, and get into then
Yeah.
others.
So is that helpful to kind of recalibrate and focus in on, okay, why am I doing what I'm doing? What are my values in this practice? Does that help with burnout? Do you think that that's a
Yeah, yeah.
good?
It really does help to recast, because a lot of, let's say the average dentist I'm working with is 7 to 10 years out of practice, out of dental school and
Mhm.
practicing. What they expected coming out of dental school and going into their first 5 years, it isn't that what the reality wasn't what they expected. So they had a vision for something. It's very different. Now they're hitting kind of that 7, 8, 9 year mark where they've become very competent clinically, and they're going in and kind of, and the years just pass by and they're just fixing teeth, and they sort of look around and say like, where am I, and what does my practice look like, and is this what I not only maybe envisioned when I first thought about becoming a dentist, but is this what I want for my next 10, 15, 20 years? So it can be really fun to talk to them about. Again, one of the special things about our industry still is that like the possibilities are endless. If you focus and make the right moves and do the right things, you can have the type of practice you want. It can be a fee for service boutique practice where you do more cosmetic work. It can be a participate in every PPO practice where you're, seeing high volumes of patients and you have a really big practice with associates. And it really is, it needs though to come from the doctor. They have to cast that vision and then create that focus, that intentional focus around that vision to get and achieve what they want.
Yeah, I think that's big. I think a lot of dentists are in that spot. And one thing that we were talking about before the show, um, the impact that that has on your team and the culture. Like when you're not in the right mindset and you're feeling the stress and you're feeling the overwhelm and you're feeling the burnout and you don't have that vision anymore for your practice, that I think oftentimes, yes, we focus on the health of the dentist and we want to get that, dialed in and help where we can. But we forget about, oh, well, there's this whole team that's also experiencing some kind of energy and some kind of conflict from this. Can you speak on that a little bit and like how you
Right.
help
Yeah,
bring
100,
someone to the
100%.
team?
I get what you're saying. Like if the dentist hasn't figured out ways to push back against the burnout and the drain of energy maybe that they're feeling, and they don't continue to work to build communication, lines of communication between their team, and be the clear leader, be the clear decision maker, be the clear person who's setting the pace and the energy for the practice. If they lose their ability to do that because they're so drained themselves, the whole practice suffers. When we as dentists put that proverbial white coat on, we are the leader, and our team recognizes us as that, and we are modeling and leading them in some way. The question is, are we intentional about how we're modeling and leading what we want from the practice? And I just see that's sort of my big analogy. I've used this in a lot of my writing. Is it's like a leak. A dental practice is like a tire with a slow leak. It's got this little hole in it, and it's constantly losing energy and air, in the form of air. And if the dentist doesn't have enough energy, and let's just say drive and focus for the future to keep the system inflated, the whole
Yeah.
thing is just going to continue to get flat, because I don't care how good of a practice or a business you have in general, it's always losing energy in some way over time. That's just the natural law of entropy of systems.
Yeah. Yeah. When you work one-on-one with your clients, do you get involved with the team, or are you just working mainly with the doc one-on-one?
I haven't gone into any of my relationships with the doctors intending to get involved with the team, because I really feel like I have to work with the doctor and get that foundation right. But I do have some clients now that are saying like, hey, I'd really love for you to, come in and work with and talk to my team. And so next week I'm starting. It can be, I like to be able to show up in person if I can. So there is a practice here in my hometown that did bring me on to do just that, to work with the team. I also still work with some great leaders and team members from my past. Remember, I said, like, when you build a group like the group we built, like that was by no means just me, and we had incredible
Yeah.
marketing people, human resources, regional managers, office managers, doctors. I mean, it was a huge team effort. Just worked with some amazing people in my career. So I'm still in touch with some of them. And so sometimes I'll kind of like have them jump in, especially if it's an area that the practice is really struggling. It's very specific, like human
Mm.
resources, or, the front desk team needs to be trained
Mhm.
on new processes and systems, or there's a great front desk team member who really should be an office manager, and that training needs to happen. I have some people that I'll bring in. But the answer is I try to accommodate whatever my clients need. And I do that. A lot of the ways I do that is just by referring them or bringing someone in that's a lot smarter than me at what they need.
Yeah. I think that's wise, that philosophy of finding people smarter than you and letting them work in their zone of genius, right?
Right.
So does that kind of help us better understand your methodology when you are coaching? I know you help with burnout and find values and vision, but what other components to your coaching do you bring to the table, and how does that work? What do you think is different about your approach than a lot of what's out there already?
Kind of just mentioned it. Like, I'm a big believer in teaching early on, working with the dentist and helping them with their own self-awareness. So a lot of times a coach will dive in and it's all about self-improvement. Like, what are we going to do? What's wrong? What's broken with you that we're going to fix? And that where are all your gaps that need, your weaknesses that need to become strengths? I lean a little bit more on the side, or I'd say a lot more on the side of being teaching the dentist to be self-aware. What are your strengths, and how can we leverage those strengths? Just like you said, Brett, like what's your unique genius? What are your unique skills as a dentist in terms of your hands, working with patients, communicating with patients, and where are your gaps rather than weaknesses? And then when we identify those gaps, what are we going to do to backfill those? And maybe it's training an amazing office manager to sort of backfill some of that stuff. There's no escaping the fact that they have to be the leader, but there is a way to leverage someone's strengths through self-awareness and filling in then gaps that they naturally have, that if they try to go and do everything themselves, that is where I'm seeing a lot of the burnout. So I'm trying to kind of coach dentists away from like being the one person that does everything in their practice. Oh, you do the 10 things that you do really well, or the 5 things you do really well. And then these 10 or 15 other, capacities and things that need to get done. Let's get a marketing team to do that, or an outside marketing company like yours. or an outside HR person to take care of this, or let's get your front desk person trained. You're not qualified to do that. You don't know processes and systems for front desk. So but you are amazing clinically. You're great at communicating with patients. You're really good with the hiring and onboarding process. Again, I'm making this up, but let
Yeah.
you do more of that, and then let's build the capacities around you to fill in
Yeah.
some gaps.
How often do you find you're working with a client and they're super business minded, administrative focused? It's like, hey, I want to transition more into practice owner. I don't want to be on clinical. I want to hire a team of associates. I want to do the multi-location thing and just be on the board, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That
No,
happen.
there are lots of people that are hitting that point. They're clinically burned out. They're just the going in and the seeing patients day in and day out. And that tends to be a group of dentists that sort of have a little bit of more of that entrepreneurial DNA.
Mhm.
And they've reached a point in their dental career where I think just going in and giving injections and fixing teeth has gotten a little bit monotonous, and that's where the burnout's coming from. So yeah, then we start to craft like, okay, what's a vision for the future that's going to create some challenge and some scalability and some stimulation for you, again, to kind of get you out of that burnout boredom cycle. That's not your. I think the answer you said, like how many? That's not a lot.
It's not, yeah.
There's a few. A lot of them just want to take the practice that they have and kind of transform it into something that's going to be, I don't know, for lack of a better term, just a little less draining, or a lot less
Oh,
draining,
okay.
like all the energy that they're putting in. So it's sometimes just a reorganization of systems, processes, who's doing what are you good at? Let's focus on that and build the team around you to kind of take some of this off of your plate.
Yeah. Yeah, how much of it is coaching them on hiring the right people and finding the right people and putting key people in place, like we talked about earlier? That seems to be like it, because if you're wanting to get to be where your business is more of an asset and it's not controlling you and you work 3 days a week and like you're going to need a team, you're going to need things dialed in so that it is kind of running and you,
100%.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
huge. It's everything. Like the dentist's ability to, in the book Good to Great, Jim Collins talks about, and I go into practice, I'm like, hey, you guys have a good practice, but that's the enemy of being great. I mean, you could have a great practice. There's things that we need to tweak. And a lot of times it is getting the right people in the right seats. And again, that's a Jim Collins good to great concept. And it's also one of the very first things we often have to do is we need to take a close look at what is your hiring and onboarding process, or do you have one at all? I just see too many dentists that, a great hygienist leaves because her husband gets a job in a different state, or someone goes on maternity leave, or someone just, unexpectedly quits, and they're in panic mode. And when you're hiring or trying to fill a spot in panic mode, the result is never good. So they're literally looking at the first person that applies and that you sit down with and they like, and oh, Brett, you're just such a nice guy. Yep, we'd love to have you. When you sit down with somebody in that situation, they want to like you and you want to like them. Like you want to like them. And you don't ask the best questions. You don't really have a process for kind of vetting out someone who's going to fit into your specific culture, get along really well with your team. And you just plug somebody in there, and 4 to 6 weeks later, after everybody's kind of poured time into the new person, they're gone and you're kind of right back at it. And that's really frustrating for practices and really frustrating for dental team members, especially the A players. And if they see that over and over and over, it's very draining for them. So a lot of times we just have to go in and kind of rebuild that right away, so that because it's inevitable, people are going to come and go. Let's alleviate some of that stress by having a process in place that's going to help us get somebody who's high quality.
yeah, yeah. I love that. Yeah, if you don't have a process around it or you're not tracking certain metrics, then it's like you don't. That's that's an exposed area of your business that can, until you learn that lesson, you're just going to keep going through it over and over and over, right? Um, so let's talk a little bit about this practice that you've got now. Digging into the weeds a little bit more of like uh, growing a practice, marketing a practice. What are some things that have worked well for you to get a practice filled and schedule filled and attract patients?
My right now, the only practice that I own is my coaching practice. I'm working a couple days a month in public health, and I don't have to handle any of the marketing for that. We have just an enormous flood of patients because we're the only organization that takes Medicaid in all of Northwest Colorado. So we are booked for months. No marketing needed there, but reflecting back on my days of growing and helping my clients grow, Brett, it really starts with a focus and a vision of like, what do you want your practice to be? Who is the ideal patient that you want to walk through your door? I did a podcast a couple weeks ago, and we talked about this quite a bit with Ben, another guy from Insurance Untangled, and Ben, Ben was asking a lot of the same thing. Like a PPO driven practice looks very different than a fee for service practice, right? A highly cosmetic, lots of bells and whistles, Invisalign, veneers, sort of bread and butter, that type of practice versus the bread and butter dentistry type of practice. They look very different. So the marketing and what you need to kind of put out there to the world, the way your waiting room looks, the way you present yourself, which is what marketing is, it can be, needs to be very intentional and focused based on your vision for the practice. So for me, the biggest thing working with doctors in terms of like, okay, hey, well, let's do some marketing. Yes, marketing is extremely important, but who are we marketing to? Who do you want to walk through your door? Who are the ideal people? And what do we need to do to your practice to make to have your marketing and the way your practice really is and your vision talk to each other? Right? Because sometimes the marketing's out there and we're trying to get this group of patients, but the practice itself, when they walk in, is sort of geared toward a different look, or a different type of a model. So to me, it's like, okay, what we have to figure this out first, so that when we contact a great marketing team and bring in, and I love using people who are talented in marketing, because why would we try to step out of our lane and do that? But it's our responsibility to tell them what we want coming in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And that's a big part of what we focus on at Marketing 32 is making sure we're attracting that ideal patient. Is the messaging in our ads and on our website, and does the video and photography tie in this brand experience that's going to attract that patient? And can we then prove that our marketing generated that patient? I think that's where a lot of marketers and practice owners have a disconnect, is they don't track marketing dollars spent to ROI production generated in the practice. They may know, okay, we got this many leads, we got this many calls, but are we really seeing, are these patients showing up? Are they the ideal patient that's moving forward with treatment?
Right.
That's the other piece.
Yep.
There's
Love how Marketing 32 does that, Brett. I mean, it's just so important. And, when my clients ask me about marketing, I like, one of the things you really have to be aware of is like, what is the ROI, and understanding like how long it takes to see that ROI. And then really how you drill that down to like, what is a new patient worth to you, especially a certain type of new patient. And breaking down the metrics and the dollars of all of that is super important. You guys do a great job with that.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, we've talked about quite a bit in just a half hour here. We're about out of time, but I always like to close with one question that I ask everybody, and that is, if there's one thing that you've seen really make an impact in either for your clients or for you, Jeff, that's really unlocked things for you, is like, this one concept really made a huge difference for me. And what's that epiphany that we can help our listeners have?
Yeah, great question. And but I come back to this answer every single time. When I was growing and kind of got into this mode where I finally stepped up to the plate and became a great leader and worked on it and studied and learned from other great leaders on how to be a great leader, because it is teachable, it really was the moment where I looked in the mirror and realized that the success of this dental practice is going to rely on my ability to grow, change, learn, surround myself with people that are smarter than me, not only on my team, but as, consultants, coaches. I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and countless plane trips and flying all over the country, working on me, learning from people that were a lot smarter, better leaders, better business people. So I think the breakthrough moment and what I have with my clients is as I get to know them, it's talking and it's convincing them and making sure they understand that they're going to have to do some real work on themselves,
Yeah.
just as much, if not more, than the work they put in to become a dentist, right? 4 years they had to excel in their undergrad institution, 4 years of dental school, hard work, lots of money, lots of studying, lots of frustration. You need to do the same on the personal side and on the business side and on the leadership side if you really want to experience breakthrough.
Yeah, I love that. I forget who I heard it from first, because I've heard it a number of times, but this concept of be, do, have, right? A lot of times we focus on, I want this, I want to have this outcome. And so what do I need to do to have that outcome? And that's where we get lost. It's like, okay, I did this marketing, I did this thing, I hired this coach, I did whatever it is, you're doing an action, but are you getting to the core of like, who are you fundamentally? And are you becoming that person who then does the things that gets the outcome?
Right. I perfectly said. I love that. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah, but you do have that. I
Yeah,
forget where I
yeah,
first heard that. Become
yeah,
become what you want. Or
yeah,
like, yeah, do and then you'll do the things that
yeah.
achieve the outcome. Yeah.
And then you'll get what you want, but be clear
Yeah.
on it and be that person that is sort of like, I don't know, worthy of that, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
that's the groundwork for that person who's going to get what they want. It doesn't, right. It's not easy. It takes time and
Yeah,
effort.
100%.
All good things do.
Well, this has been a fun half hour. Thank you, Dr. Jeff Grove, for coming on. Where can we send people if they want to connect with you? I know we've got your website, ascensiondentalcoach.com. Is there any other resource or place you want to send them to connect with you?
No, that's great. I try to stay active on LinkedIn and put a lot of content out there. And so every once in a while I get a message saying somebody read something there and it really helped them out. So, check me out, find me on LinkedIn, connect with me there. That's where I'm consistently posting content. But my website is a place where you can go and set up a 30-minute call and we can meet. My coaching company is it's just me. It's very boutique. It's very small. So we're going to meet, we'll talk, and we'll see if it's a good fit. And if I'm the right person to help you with the challenges that you're having. So you can set that call up via my website. So thanks for asking, Brett. And thanks for having me. Really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
this has been awesome. AscensionDentalCoach.com, you guys. Jeff is one of those guys that has been in the weeds and it's been where you want to go with your practice. If you're wanting to grow, if you're wanting to do the group practice thing, he's got that experience. He's not just a coach out there, with their own system. He's really been in the trenches. So reach out to Dr. Jeff Grove, AscensionDentalCoach.com. And Dr. Jeff Grove, thank you for coming on again.
Brett, my pleasure. Thanks again. Thanks for having me. Look forward to seeing you soon.
All right, everybody, until the next time on the Marketing 32 Show, have a great rest of your day. Take care.